kind of food were you served when you would be like at some place like that where you're completely out in the...
Well,
what would
funny
they feed
that you
you?
asked that because that place had no mess hall. So they just had a tent that they would cook food in and put it in to-go containers or just in big vats, and people would come by and grab what they could, and they would just walk and eat it, sit somewhere. It was the most desolate place I've ever been in my entire life. I've never seen anything like it. And they had...
And this was your first trip?
Yes, it was. This was my first day.
First day.
And I remember I don't eat meat. I'm vegetarian, but the funny thing was then I was there and they're like, you can have a steak or you can have nothing. And I was like, I'll have a steak, please. So I mean, there I don't push my luck. I just don't.
Right.
I eat whatever they give me. I don't. No one even knew in 4 tours that I was vegetarian because I would just eat whatever they gave me. 'Cause I didn't have the nerve to ever say, oh, you know what?
I'd like a special.
I don't really eat that. I was like, and you see these guys and women that are just living in such hard existences that
day
I
in,
ate
day
anything
out.
they gave me and was happy to have it.
Oh my gosh! Now, did you travel did you have your own sleeping bag or how did they?
I have my own sleeping bag, and you just kind of slept wherever. We slept in one of Saddam Hussein's gardening sheds one night.
Oh, you're kidding!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And we were all stuffed in there where you could almost touch the other comics' feet would be touching my head, and then someone's feet would be I'd be touching someone else's. It was we were sardined into places, and it was hot. And that was funny because they sold it to us like, do you want to stay at Saddam Hussein's house? And we were like, great. And they're like, yeah, but they didn't tell us we were staying at the gardening shed. It's awful. I was like, we would have stayed in a tent because sometimes the tents were the best things.
Right.
You would think the tents would be the least preferred.
Tom, let me ask you, while you were there, did you perform for any soldiers other than Americans? Did you perform for the other countries?
We did. There was certain shows that were more of a coalition-based. There were things. There were Aussie. There were Brits, there were Canadian troops, but predominantly American troops. But it was fun because, if you crossed over and they understood some of the nuances of your humor, they were just, as happy as anybody. These British guys, they went bananas because one day I was there and Prince Charles was in country. First time in 45 years that he had visited a British, ambassador like that had gone in the country. So I made a joke about it, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, they're like, we felt so at home. Thank you." So it touched the nerve with the Brits. So
now going back to what we were talking about, I'm curious about the female comedian. Now, where did she sleep while you were in the shed?
She slept with us.
Oh,
she
did. She was one of the guys.
There were. You kind of throw that all away, and you got to kind of just jump.
Suck it up.
Yeah, because it's such a limited. The resources are very limited at times as far as what you can do. I mean, they do have the one thing they do is they have separate men and women showering facilities.
Okay,
but but as far as the cappuccino machine and stuff.
Of course, there's a lot of women soldiers there too.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It's a different army than what I recall.
Absolutely.
Now, did you have any what I would consider, and your mother would consider, close calls while you were there?
We did actually in I can't remember the city right now, but it was outside. It was outside of Mosul, and it was we were on stage one night, and I was the third in the order that night. And I remember I got off stage, and as soon as we got off stage, it's like boom, this huge mortar round came in and landed right by the building we were standing in. Shook the building and scared me.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like I have never been scared in my life. And all the troops got up and just ran out of the building and left all the comics just standing in this. It was in Saddam Hussein's dining room and one of his palaces. And so they ran out. And we didn't even know what to do. We just stood there, just staring at each other. And the one comic, my friend Warren B. Hall, his comedy rule number 1, he never stopped. He just stood there. He's talking to nobody, like, "Hey, everybody!" He just kept going with his set. He's like the band on the Titanic, just And then the soldiers filed back in one by one once they found out that no one was hurt. And then, by the end of the show, it was filled up, and it was just another day in Iraq, and just end the show. It just never stopped. It was.
Oh my gosh!
I thought, oh my gosh, this is so surreal. You know.
So, Bob Hope would have been proud of you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Carry on for the troops.
Thank you.
That's a great story.
Thank you.
Now, when you were traveling, did you have we heard so much about the problems with the armored vehicles. Were you in safe vehicles?
No, because we were there. I mean, I started right before, the whole you go to war with the army that you have.
Okay.
That was, and so, we got picked up one day and we drove through the city and we had no doors, not even plastic doors. Plastic doors I thought were bad enough. We had no doors driving through the city of Jalalabad, and it was just, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so. It was 125 degrees. We're driving through the city with no doors on it, and I thought, am I out of my mind to come here and do this? Like, I just kept thinking of all the people going, dude, why are you doing this? And so I just thought, just pretend it's not happening. That's all you can do. I mean, I'm sure that has, I don't quantify anything that I do over there with people that are actually in combat, but I'm just sure there's got to be some element of it that you just got to it's surreal. You have to decompress. You have to disconnect. And I mean, because it's so...
You can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so.
Yeah. And this is what we hear about back home. And it's so interesting to talk to someone who's been there.
Right.
When we talk about the war so many people have not even had the opportunity to speak to any of the soldiers or the veterans.
Sure.
And it's so interesting to hear your perspective. And the amazing thing to me is that you've actually done this 4 times.
Well, thanks. In my DVD, in my show that I do, 25 Days in Iraq, the interesting thing is that no one, in all the times I've performed it, has ever come up to me and questioned anything that I've ever said on stage, because I'm not speculating, because first of all, I'm a vet. Secondly, I've been there 4 times. So when you can say that you've walked in those shoes, then you can talk to me about that.
Yeah, your credentials are amazing. That's why I'm so pleased to have you here today. And I know my listeners are enjoying hearing your perspective and your take on the war in Iraq. Before we talk more about your entertaining the troops, I'd like to tell my listeners how they can get your DVD and a little bit about what your website and how they can find you.
Well, you can actually go, the website is 25daysiniraq.com, and that's the number 25, DAYSINIRAC.com. So that's the website has a variety of pictures from my tours of the troops that I met overseas and some reviews of the show. And the DVD has a portion of it of me doing stand-up at Saddam Hussein's palace, which is fun. The whole show is 65 minutes long. I filmed at a theater in New York.
Okay.
So...
for my listeners, I want to tell them and share with them that I did go to Tom's website, and it's an incredible trip. Also, there's so many comments from the people that he entertained, and the soldiers are so appreciative. And they just loved you so much.
Oh, thanks.
And it was just so enjoyable to read that and to see the connection that you had with the troops that you entertained.
Well, thank you.
Also, I want to mention that you also have another book that is on your website, and this is just an amazing book. It's called I Want a Girl.
Yep.
And I've seen that book, and it's a very humorous book, as only a guy who without a girl.
Right.
And you wrote it, and it'd make a wonderful gift for a lot of mothers who have young sons who might need to find a girl. I'd recommend that highly. When we're talking about Iraq, can you tell my listeners what was one of the funniest things that happened while you were there?
The things that you find funny in Iraq, I think someone have a dark humor side to them in the regard that, there was a time where we were doing a show in Babylon, and it was right on the Euphrates River there.
Oh my gosh,
so,
that's so amazing to hear someone say they've been to Babylon.
Yeah, I mean, I had no concept that it was, that is 350 years BC. Okay,
Oh, okay.
I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
So, but there
Wow.
was right before we were to go on stage, and the military is so, I mean, dunk, dunk, dunk. They just marched this way, and they just said. Now, there's been some possible terrorist activity and some people that we've seen, and we got some intel about that some people might try and hit during the show. And so what it is that they found out that they just found across the river, right from the building where we were going to be performing, they caught 3 guys with rocket launchers that were pointed right at the building.
Oh,
and
my.
they said, so if there's more, this might go down during the show, and if it does, we're going to have to take you out through the kitchen. But other than, they're like, but have a good show, and don't think about what I just told you. You just it's just and stuff like that just happens all the time. And they just think. They don't think that they might have just scared you to death.
Thou shalt not whine. We'll be right back.